You are recording.
All right, thanks everyone. Gather around, get a seat. Conscious your lunch breaks are indefinite. Thanks. Thanks so much for braving the weather. Just a bit of a heads up, we are recording. We had a few people request recording. So quick introduction, I'm Liam O'Neill, and we've got Tokes over here that no doubt everyone knows. Been around for ages, this guy. But a couple of housekeeping pieces. If there is an emergency, we've got the emergency exits over there. Follow them, and we marshal outside the green parrot, is it? Yeah. If you need to use the facilities, the toilets are just around here on the left. And we'll talk for probably about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. At most. Oh, you reckon more?
Oh, it'll easily go further. And mainly because you're going to interrupt us throughout the whole thing. So I reckon rather than holding questions till the end, just get stuck in. I reckon we'll go 40 minutes.
Cool. Sounds good. And so the topic we're covering here is the misunderstandings that both Tokes and I have observed between CEOs and product leaders. And that could be a product manager, it could be a product owner, it could be a project manager who's doing a bit of product work, or even the head of product, chief product officer roles. So I think I'll just let Tokes crack into it. We're gonna do half the talk each. Tokes is gonna talk about what CEOs misunderstand about product leaders, and then I'll talk about what product leaders misunderstand about CEOs.
Awesome. So I was hoping to see more. Well, who's a CEO? One? Okay, all right. Well, because this topic was actually, we brought it back again because after our Product Aotearoa conference that we did, I don't know, did anyone go to the conference? Yep, cool. So that was our second product conference, a New Zealand-wide product conference that we did this year in Wellington. I'm doing another one later this year in Auckland, so if you want to get your travel and your professional development budget sorted, then make sure you get to that one. And I came away from that with this feeling that we're doing it wrong in the product community. And the irony of product people being in cross-functional roles, right? So we have to engage with all of the company to do our jobs well, from the CEO right through into customer service, with engineers, with a range of different people that we have to somehow collaborate with and find a path forward that's going to maximize the efforts of everybody in the team. Despite that, all of the talk we do about product management is 9 times out of 10 to product managers. So the conference was predominantly product people in the conference, maybe a few designers and product wannabes, but mostly people who were in the field of product leadership in some form. And I came away thinking that that's not really very cool for a discipline that's supposed to be thinking and learning about other disciplines. And it came through in some of the topics that we talked about, like financial literacy, understanding how businesses operate, business models, being more empathetic with customers through the support part of a business. So there's all these things that we do talk about. We talk about them ourselves, and we don't know if we're right, I don't think. And I want more resistance to our groupthink that is happening. So this topic was kind of a first step towards that in terms of opening up a little bit about how other people see product people, and I think misconceptions that we have when we look out into other parts of the organization. So I'm a product leadership coach. I've worked with around 70 odd companies in the last 7 years and talked to all of their CEOs, and in some cases coached them and certainly heard about them, helped them hire their first head of products. It's one of the things I do. And so I feel like I've heard a lot of the impressions that CEOs have of product managers and product people in general. And I wanted to touch on the top 3 that I've heard and sort of shine a bit of light on them, and see if I can kind of offer some, not, oh, CEOs, you're wrong, but as much product managers, this is why you're misunderstood, and maybe there's some things you could change in the way you operate to be seen differently, and to gain a better understanding and empathy for for what a founder or CEO might be thinking. So the first one I came up with was that CEOs believe that PMs are primarily responsible for delivery. And so it's one of the things we always talk about. You say, oh my God, I'm just treated like a project manager. Nobody understands, what my job's all about, and I just get thrown with the engineers and told to make it go faster and when's it going to be there. And so even product managers think this is true. So one of the really interesting results of the survey we sent out as part of the last conference, I shared some of the stats with it, was that of all the disciplines that people come from when they get into product, 50% of the backgrounds of people who get into the product for the first time is either as a business analyst or a software developer. So half of people getting into product are coming from in very delivery-focused roles. And in fact, I suspect if I did that split around delivery versus non-delivery type roles, it'd be even higher, but the percentages dropped off really quickly after those two disciplines. And so we come from working inside creative teams who are building the value of the product. And so that's where we often feel comfortable. And so if a CEO says, well, I think your job's all about delivery and I want you to make this thing deliver better, then a lot of product managers will capitulate to that and actually feel quite good about it because they're really good at delivery because that's what they've been doing in the career they had before product. And if you're coming with that background, then you probably know how technology teams operate. And so you've probably seen a bit of an expert and you can probably solve all the problems that the CEO thinks are sitting inside that technology team. And even worse, you're the one who fronts the technology team often. In senior leadership meetings, you might go there with your roadmap of, like a commitment diagram of all the things that you're probably not going to deliver on time. And so you get blamed for when things are late. You get asked why they're late. And so again, you're pulled into this delivery function, which exacerbates this idea of what your role is all about. And so to the CEO in the room. So this is not how we see ourselves generally. So while delivery is an necessary aspect of getting value to customers, the overriding focus of our role is less on delivery, but it can impact delivery. So I reckon there's three things you can do to impact delivery as a product manager. And one is to make sure the team are working with focus. So they're working on something that matters to the business. So it's not just a vanity project for the head of engineering to do some sort of non-functional thing that they think is important, although it could be, but it has some focus and they're not spread too thin across lots of things. They're not building more than they need to solve the problem at hand. So you're constraining them in some ways to focus on the problem that they're trying to solve and do just enough to solve the problem and not too much more. And if you do more, then be conscious about it. And if there's a misunderstanding between what's being built, what needs to be built, what sales need, what CFO needs, that communication can also slow down delivery because it can create a whole lot of confusion and people don't know what they're doing, and so they down tools. So these, I reckon, are the primary levers you have that you can and do own in terms of the cadence at which a team can operate and the speed at which it takes to get value out. And then there's 12. There's probably more than 12, and I'm not expecting you to read this. This is 12 things that other people can do to affect the efficiency and the speed of delivery. And they're largely on the engineering team and the engineering leadership. It might be, the quality of the code they're doing. It might be on automation. It might be on the release processes. It might be on their pipelines. There's a whole lot of things. It might be on their estimation skills. There's a whole lot of things that they do. 3 to 12 is probably generous. I think there's probably more than 12 things that other parts of the organization have much more agency over that can impact the speed of delivery and getting things in front of customers as soon as possible. And so my definition, well, this isn't my definition, I'll come to my definition at all, but in general, CEOs should be evaluating PMs not on the speed of delivery, but the impact that they have on the business, on the success of the business. And the number one reason why this is rarely done is because PMs are really bad at projecting the value they're creating for the business through the things they're working on. So they'll do celebrations of delivery milestones. They'll say how many features they've done. They might give you some monthly active user stats. They'll give you some stuff, but it's much more difficult for them to articulate the value of their work to the business. And if you're a PM feeling like the CEO thinks you're a delivery manager, then it's your job to make it really clear why you're more than that and why you're creating value for the business, not just doing really good delivery of the stuff you're told to build. And so my definition of the value of a product leader that has been for quite a while. Like, I don't think I updated the date on this, but I keep working on this definition. But it's an ROI conversation. So maximizing the value of the investment that you're making in the product teams that are that you're working with, who are building the stuff that you're going to sell, towards achieving the strategic goals of the business. And I somewhat provocatively don't say anything about customer in here. And I often get called out, so no, sure, I'm the ambassador for the customer. That's why I exist. I make the customer happy. Well, yeah, making the customer happy generally is how you make a successful product, but happy customers in a failing business is not, you failed as a product manager, right? So it's a means to an end, but the end is always business value. And if you live by this and project this in all the things you do, so you don't do delivery roadmaps that are divorced from strategic intent, for example. You say, well, we're doing these things because we're going to create some new revenue from a new type of customer. Might be one stream of work you do, but you're always linking stuff back up to these strategic goals in the language of the business, in the language of the CEO who thinks you're a project manager, to avoid them thinking you're a project manager. All right, number 2. I find this one most pressing if you're going for a job and you're applying for a job, especially more senior ones, you will be judged on the extent to which you know the domain of the company that you're going to be hired by. And there's this very logical sense in which, well, of course, if you're going to be a product manager and maybe the person hiring you believes that you're a value generator for the business through the decisions you and the team are going to make on the product, then how on earth can you do that if you're not a deep domain expert in this field? And imagine if you're working for Volpara or I don't know, Sharesies, and you're not an investment guru and you don't know the US health market, right? Like it would be quite hard to be trusted to do anything if you weren't a domain expert. The reality is that if you make this a criteria, which is not necessarily a bad one, like an amazing product manager who also understands the domain could be really useful, especially in very technical domains, but you've instantaneously reduced the available candidates to probably 1, and they probably already work in your company because they're the only people who have that domain expertise, and they're probably not actually a product leader. So you're going to de-emphasize the product aspect of the role in favor of someone who's closer to your domain. And in fact, some people, I was talking to someone recently who said they actively don't hire someone with domain experience as a product leader or a product manager because it stifles the ability for them to think outside the square, for them to innovate, to be able to understand it. And I also think people overestimate how complex their world is to others. And we're a room full of people, apart from the one CEO, we're a room of people, and you probably do this as well, who pick up new stuff really quickly because we necessarily have to when we get a new job. That's our job, is to really quickly understand the market and the conditions that we're working within and gain that credibility that you need to maybe go in front of customers. Now, I probably preempted all the things I was going to say. One of the things I often hear is that I can't possibly put a PM in front of our valued enterprise customers because they'll make us look stupid, like we don't know what we're talking about. They're going to ask dumb questions. There are ways of connecting product managers to customers without having them front it and look stupid for you. They can be a silent person in the room. They can sit with customer support. They can go to a sales meeting and just be an anonymous person sitting there. Maybe they can be a trainee salesperson and they don't get introduced as the head of product who should know everything. So it's not an excuse to hide those product people who aren't domain experts from your domain. In fact, they have to build that over time. And so I think it's way more important to hire someone for product leadership skills who knows how to leverage the domain experience that necessarily exists in the business. Like, you have a business full of domain experts, no doubt, by the time you're starting to think about hiring product people. So they have ready access to those people who can help them get up to speed. What they don't have is people who can help them get up to speed as to become a really effective product person. So they're going to come into a room of domain experts and salespeople and financial people and founders, and they're going to try and be a really good product person because they've never done it before, and they will fail as a product leader. They'll fall back on their discipline, whether it's sales or marketing or whatever it is they've come from, and not advance the product function within the organization. And so what you want to do as a CEO hiring a product person is hire for product chops and proven product chops in a variety potentially of domains, and then interview them on things that give you a sense of their curiosity of the domain that they're going to be working in. What adjacent experiences have they got that might be relevant to your domain, even if it's not directly in there, but really, test for their curiosity and their ability to pick up a new domain really quickly. I'm not giving you any space to talk. Anyone want to comment on those first two?
Yeah, I was going to say that I'm 3 weeks into a new role in a domain that I don't have any experience in.
Yep.
Banking as a product person. And actually coming back to your previous point about putting people in front of customers,
yes.
One of the great things about being new to a role is that you can ask some of the innocent questions. You ask them with knowledge.
Yeah.
You've done enough so that you understand the business, but you can ask some of the naive questions. Because you can get away with it as a new person, actually get some great insights that the rest of the business should already know, but sometimes don't.
Yes, and they don't know that they don't know, because one part of the business tells you one story, you hear another story, so you can be this leveler. It's totally true.
Exactly. And it is very useful, sometimes not having the domain experience, exactly to your point. I can reinforce that you come in with your product skills and go, I'm not going to provide the domain expertise, I'm going to lean on the other people for that. But I can help you as a team work out what's important. I can help you prioritize, I can help you communicate and work together. Yeah. And that's absolutely, it is helpful to be able to go, I just can't provide that domain expertise, so here's how I'm going to add value. Yeah.
And then the trick is that there are people with domain expertise around you who will have very clear ideas about what you should be prioritizing. And so they will come to you and say, well, I've been in this game for 20 years. I'm sure we've all heard this, right? I know exactly what our customers need because I was one of them, and that's why I started the business, so just build A, B, and C. And it's probably not the right strategy to say, well, hold fire, mate, I'm just going to do some discovery work and just make sure you're right. That's a bad strategy, especially early on. You need to be able to, and I often think about this, the weight you put on problem discovery versus solution discovery. And we all think we want to be playing in the problem domain, find the big opportunities, find the big problems to solve, and that's what that's our value. And then there's designers and stuff can do all this solution discovery. When you first start in a business, that's not where you're going to be playing. You're going to be listening and deriving the problem statements from the things, the A, B, and C you got told to do by the 20-year veteran. And you're going to be curious about, I'm going to make sure we look at those things. Tell me more about why you think they're the most important thing. Help me understand what the customer's pain is. And you're going to uncover your discovery is to unwind it out of the domain experts around you, not to go and do 15 customer interviews and embarrass yourself with dumb questions. And then you're going to be innovative in the solution space, much more innovative in the solution space, and go, this is the solution I've been told, and I can see how it might solve this problem, but I think we can do even better than we're being asked to. Because typically what you're asked to do is like a three-letter phrase for the thing they want you to build, and there's a lot of space in there to do something a bit more innovative than just build a mobile app or better onboarding or whatever it might be. You can innovate within the solution discovery space, and that's probably a much better place for you to start. But just don't get trapped in there for too long, because your job is to span both the problem and the solution discovery spaces. My final one. This is interesting. So there's two extremes that happen, right? Either a CEO goes, I want you to spend time with the delivery team because they're really underperforming. I want them to go faster and they don't get it, and I'm running out of money, so just get in there and make it work. So all your time's going to be spent with those delivery people just to shepherd them in. We've kind of talked about that. The other extreme that I see often in public sector and large organizations where they have departmental heads and a slightly more complex organizational structure is that they don't want you spending any time in there. they just want you to hiff over some requirements to the digital team, and don't get caught up in there. We don't even understand what they do. They're downstairs somewhere, but just make sure it happens. So there's these two extremes of models that exist and are supported by different businesses for different reasons. And that's a natural position to hold if you're hiring product people, to think that they're going to operate in your culture of the business way, the way the business work, in either one of those extremes. And most of the CEOs you've worked with have come from the public sector. They've definitely seen that PM who doesn't know anything about digital. And if they've come from the startup space, they probably assume you're a delivery manager anyway, so they just want you to spend all the time in there. And so obviously the solution here is that you don't want either extreme to happen. It's impossible to be this cross-functional maximizer of value across various stakeholders and customer types if you're constrained to either extremes of this model. So you want to be across the entire business, and your role is to be deeply empathetic to the needs of not only customers but the people in the business. If I change my value statement to do everything you can to be the, what's the phrase we always use, to be the advocate for the customer, or whatever they call it, champion, customer champion, right? If that's all you did, then you might piss off sales, you might piss off the customer support, you might piss off the CEO who's got big visions, you know. So your job is to not piss off those people, to not do what they say. Generally, you're not doing what anyone says. You're finding a path that's minimizing the amount of disappointment they all feel. But you've also got to represent the customer as well. So you've got all of this surface area to engage in, and you can't do that if you're on either end of the extremes of those two models that we talked about. And I just want to finish with a slide that, if any of you have seen me talk, you've probably seen this slide 100 times, but I think it's a useful visualization of the range of things you get involved in as a product person at various stages in your career, and it's a great tool to take into an interview if you're being hired as a PM, and then during the interview saying, where would you expect me to spend most of my time in this role? You know, what impact am I going to have on what part of the business? This can be quite a good tool, because titles that people come up with, you know, PO, senior PM, junior PM, group PM, executive PM, like, they're confusing, right? And in different contexts, they can mean different things. So what I've tried to do here is to get away from the titles and to think a little bit about the areas that you influence as a product person in whichever title you have. And so there's necessarily features that you're going to be working on, or that someone you influence will be working on, that are the means of creating value for the business, right? Nothing matters unless you deliver something. So there's a lot of delivery realities about getting those features and defining the scope of those features to get them in front of customers. And then you will often be working within a team that's building those features. And there are team concerns that you may be involved in to varying degrees. You may have to align people within that team on the goal of what you're trying to do. You may need to frame to the team who's going to be involved in solution discovery what the problem is. So you'll be in this communication space. You may need to influence the extent of that team's desire to build this amazing Rolls Royce when you only have money for a Mini. And so you have to engage with the team in various ways. Maybe you get pulled into Agile, which I think is gets confused with product management all the time, and I have strong views about it's almost nothing to do with product management other than an enabler of getting quick feedback. It's a development process. Then there's the business context within which the team is operating to build the features that create value for the customer. So now you're talking about, okay, well, what does the business need from this team? And it may not be what the team thinks the customer needs at any point in time. It may be, well, right now we need to, I'm working with a company at the moment, right now the focus is entirely on their cash flow as a business. So they're prioritizing things that are either going to reduce their cost of sale, or cost of supporting their customers, or monetizing, changing pricing maybe to get more money in from them, but they're very focused on this rather than investing for a future and going in a growth mode. Very different business imperative that you're operating in to make decisions about how you and your team are going to maximize for the business, not necessarily the customer. And then the final one is this future. So now I'm thinking about, well, where are we going 1 year, 5 years, 10 years in the future that we need to prepare for. For now, you're thinking about landing on Mars as you're building the rockets or something, right? Like you're thinking about these big audacious things. If you're thinking about your influence, and I'm aware this word can be triggering for some people, but what I mean is that you are going to help people move in the right direction without necessarily being overbearing and just telling them what to do. I don't mean that sort of bad influence, but there's a low influence that you need down this end and massive influence over there. If it's like, it's not Mars, it's Venus, your ability to influence the people who want to go to Mars is going to be very high. And so you need to have very good influential skills and ability to engage across very senior stakeholders, board of directors, investors who have given millions of their dollars to go where they thought you were going, and now you're going to influence to a different future. That's a different game than, well, I think it should be a red button, which might be what you're doing down here. And I'm oversimplifying, obviously. So influence dimension changes as you go along that spectrum, and your motivation necessarily changes. I'm very much thinking about the thing that's going to be delivered, and yes, the impact that thing is going to have, but I can shape it and I can inform it and I can see how big it's going to be down here. I don't know what we're going to build to get to Mars, but I know it's going to be the future of civilization, and the planet Earth is dead if we don't do it. I mean, don't know if that's true, but so you don't know the things, so you're necessarily more focused on the outcomes. So a product manager, oh, this is first, normally I have the other ones, but maybe they'll come up. So a product manager typically, and again, titles, forget the titles, but I'm just going to make up the general sort of average dimension of these roles, is spending less time on the features themselves and the building out, the fleshing out the way it's going to manifest itself for customers. You've got designers for that, you've got UX people for that, you've got engineers who are going to help you with that. You'll be influencing that, but much more time in the team dynamic, in the way the team's operating to make decisions, giving that team the information that needs to make even better decisions when you're not there. And you're very firmly rooted in the needs of the business to fulfill your role of maximizing the value of the efforts of the team towards the success of the business. So you've got to have a foot squarely in both of those camps. 1 minute. Yep. Project manager. Project manager has nothing to do with product. It's purely in this feature space generally. There are some project managers who also do product stuff, but on paper at least, project management is around timeframes, reporting, Gantt charts, resource allocation. It's things that are potentially necessary for creating value in the product, but is not really a value optimizer on its own. Product owners touch into the team, so they're often sort of like quite heavily in the delivery side of things, work with the team as well. Head of product, typically thinking about the context of the business with an eye to the future, so they're making sure you know the current imperatives, but where it's taking you later on. And then you'll have, in early stage companies, you're pretty much doing it all. So whatever your title is, if you're the only product in the room, you probably trying to touch that and resist being pulled back into the product owner, project manager side of things. And now my minute's up, and so there you go. So Liam, what are PMs getting wrong?
Can we ask questions at the end?
Oh, you can ask questions now if you want. We'll do my side first. Yeah.
I was just, can you give some examples about those two bits in the middle? So there's the team and the business?
Yeah.
What are some examples of those two spaces?
So the business would be product strategy. It would be more about the strategy and whether you need to re-articulate it for the product context or whether it's being involved in the product strategy at the business level. Most companies in New Zealand are small enough that they're intermingled. I would say problem discovery would be more in the business side. So I now need to be aware of which problems I'm going to solve to help the business achieve the strategic goals it has before we even think about what we're going to build. And then in the team side, it might be more solution discovery. Now I'm much more collaborative about working with my team on solution discovery because I want the designers and the engineers to be thinking about the solutions. I'm not telling them what to build. I'm not building a big spec document for them. Now I'm enabling them, but I'm working alongside them as a positive influence to that group. There might be team dynamics like, I joked about Agile, but you might be running some of the Scrum ceremonies, you might be using some prioritization techniques with the team to help them prioritize things. You might even be backlog grooming for the team to help sort of sift through all the noise that's in there, just to give them a sense of what's right.
And would it be a fair characterization to say that for the team's been given the problem to solve, but then in the business,
Yeah,
they've been given like business outcomes to solve, and they need to come up with the problems.
yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah.
Okay, and then.
I mean, it's not, none of this is
Yeah,
perfectly
yeah.
tidy, but in general, the business
Cool.
will have strong opinions about the solution to build, right? It's not that the business doesn't care, but you're unwrapping that to understand the root cause of their desire to have that thing. And business outcomes are often not framed in terms of, well, sometimes they are, but like feature A, B, and C is our business strategy. Like that is a bad strategy, right? Yeah.
Cool. Sure, thank you.
I had a question on one of the first slides. You said maximize the impact delivered, but then the question is, how do you assess the impact?
Yeah. So the fundamental challenge of product is that the impact you can measure typically has no relationship to the strategic goals of the company. So the strategic goal of the company is typically a lagging indicator of success around revenue, customer numbers, ARR, whatever those, and most companies have the same goals, just slightly different sort of slicing of them, right? And so you need to be you have to have the ability to say, well, and sometimes it might be, I'm doing a collection of things around this part of the app because I know this type of customer gets value from that part of the app, and I know we don't have enough of that type of customer, and my strategy is to get more of that type of customer, and if we have more of that type of customer, they pay us more money, so it's going to contribute to revenue. So you've got to unwind why you're measuring how many days a week this customer is using this feature, which is not a very illuminating stat for a business owner, as to why you care, and wrap it all the way back to there. But I'm not trying to make that sound easy. That's really hard, but it's the essence of why we're so misunderstood, because that's hard to do.
Yeah, I wonder if someone is doing that successfully, right?
I think there's small things you can do, right? Like I say, never do a delivery roadmap without having strategical themes on it. And so like the swim lanes shouldn't be team A, B, and C. It shouldn't be mobile, web, something else. It's got to be something in the language of the business. So that's like a small thing you could do tomorrow. Just rejig your delivery, even if it is a delivery roadmap, to align it to the language that you've maybe derived from the strategy of the business right now, so that they can at least see, you can go in there and go, okay, I can see how much my team's investing in growth versus just keeping this thing afloat, versus a particular new customer segment. And then you could go, that feels like a good balance of investment across the team. Whereas if it's just we're doing A, B, and C and they're all late, you don't really know. You have to work out whether that's a good investment in time towards your goals.
Yeah, but investment in time is different from impact delivered. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Maybe as an example, so I work for a learning management software company called Totara Learning, and we're a global company, and we've just recently been acquired by a new venture capital company, and we'll probably get sold again in like 4 years. So the way I'm framing, that's the world, like when you're in that space. So the way I'm framing a lot of our product investment decisions are the impact we believe they'll have in 4 years upon sales. So we're investing a lot of time to say, if we can, add another 10 million in revenue at this multiplier, it's likely to make you guys this much extra money. It's going to take us 3 years to do it, which is the total cost of this. So you're going to get a good return. So literally it is the investment on how much you're spending on the wages of my 14 people is going to be this amount based on what we believe to be true in 4 years' time. And then trying to collect enough data points around that to make that sound believable.
Yeah, but it's not believable to a CEO because you're saying that time is correlated to impact, which is not the case.
But also, you're talking about.
Yeah, it might not be
4 years,
one-on-one.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're talking about ROI in 4 years. World is changing every day, faster than before, right? If I invest, say for example, I invest in people and team and everything, and after 3 years, world has changed for me. I don't see ROI back. Maybe you will be there, maybe you will not be there. I can't coordinate for it, right? So how is the CEOs and product management team realizing the benefits? If I am the CEO, I am before, I want to see the results now. Yeah. That's one of the things you were saying.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to see the results now, or maybe in 1 week's time, right? I mean, the time frames have reduced because of the technology shift, right? I
Yeah.
understand from CEO's point of view. I don't understand from the product point of view because I have a delivery experience. Yeah, I've always been questioned on delivery.
Yeah.
Project management, program management.
Yeah, because it's a near-term measure of success.
And that is why I think you were bringing that theme in, right? I mean, just talking about New Zealand, I have 15 years work here overseas as well. We don't even do the standard waterfall well, right? Now we're going into this model and spending more money, right? Obviously with the product owner, product show, right?
Maybe this is a good.
How do I realize the value and how can I get the benefit out of it? Is the very question always has been, right? I know some good product managers in New Zealand and very good, right? In Wellington, they do, but with the customer, they continuously deliver value, and their team likes them, their management likes them, you know. There are good cases like that, but the problem is, how do I justify a return on investment? I don't want 3-year roadmap, especially when the company is getting bought again and again, right? The roadmap changes, the strategy changes, everything changes.
I think we know we're going to move on, but like
Sorry,
that's a big topic, right? Like, but if you ask the CEO what happened before, when maybe you don't need product people. Like, if you can make the decisions and feel like your decisions are the maximization of the effort of the team you've got, don't hire a product person.
No, I want them to make those decisions,
Yeah.
not based on time invested.
Yeah, the roadmap is not a time thing necessarily, right?
Correlations between metric and you tell a story.
Yeah. But when I say the investment, it's like, and you see these strategic themes and what's being delivered and worked on. Yeah, some of it there's a time dimension to it, but it might be loose, right? Like,
I'll weave it into
Yeah,
my answer here
you
because I'm conscious we'll miss out on lunch breaks. So, hi everyone, I'm Liam O'Neill. I've been some form of product manager for about 13 years now. 3 different energy companies, Australia, UK, and New Zealand, where I work with Justin. And I've worked in telco, and I'm now in the software space. Again, similar there, but into the software space. Where product management actually makes sense. That's good. What's that, sorry?
And EdTech as well.
Yeah, good space to be in. So I've thought a lot about product management, really passionate about it, and had similar conversations to these two with CEOs many, many times before. So what is the value of this team? Last year I had the CEO completely get rid of the area of the business that I was working on and literally said to me, all right, Liam, come up with what are we doing next? So I'll weave my answers in as we go. So 3 things that product managers don't understand about CEOs based on my experience. So the first thing, that PMs often believe that the CEO is only interested in features. I hear this a lot from product managers. They just want more and more features, more shiny things, particularly shiny things with the letters A and I written on them. And you can kind of understand where product managers are coming from, right? You get a lot of pressure from CEOs to deliver the next feature. They don't always discuss the why behind that feature. So we need this thing, hurry up and deliver it. When can I have it? And you're not sometimes hearing what the why is behind it. And you get asked, how quickly is this thing going to be delivered? You know, like all your roadmap discussions end up being, okay, there's that feature. That's the thing that's going to transform our company. Can we get it next week? Don't want to wait. When's that money? Chop, chop. So I can understand where it comes from. But in my experience, there is always a why. So, and the CEOs care about the why. They may be in a big rush and haven't communicated the why to you, but your job as a product manager is to find out the why. And I've got an example here. So I work at a software company. We build learning management software. We've got about 21 million users around the world who use us. So we've got most of the NHS nurses in the UK use our software for all their training. We've got US Air Force, US Peace Corps, US Department of Agriculture, US Veterinary Affairs. We've got most of the car manufacturing companies globally, Panasonic, Sony. So big organizations use our software to do their training. And I had a call with a CEO saying, we need an integration with this e-commerce solution yesterday. Make it happen. I'm like, cool. Tell me about why. What's going on? And he explained to me that, hey, we've been drilling into our sales funnel, and we're noticing that there's opportunities falling out of the funnel when it gets to the point of discussing integrations. And I've talked to the sales team. They're saying it's e-commerce integrations. Whenever someone asks for an e-commerce integration, we don't have a good answer. So we're losing sales prospects. That's costing us money. Why are you still talking to me? Hurry up and deliver this e-commerce feature. And I was like, cool, all right, I'm hearing you. Tell me why this one. Oh, they happened to be in last week and told us they do e-commerce, so let's just use them. Okay, cool. So you got a free lunch out of them, and now you want to buy their software. Great. So asking a few more questions, and then going with the sales team on some of the calls with the prospects, you can dig into the why a bit more. So from the CEO's point of view, wants to unlock the sales funnel. It's painful seeing all your marketing spend generate these leads, and those leads fall out a hole in the bucket, right? That's very painful, that's expensive. But spending time with the sales team found out that the different prospects that are coming through were actually asking for very different e-commerce solutions that a single solution wouldn't be able to meet. And this one in particular, this is being recorded. So anyway, you wouldn't pick this particular solution. They're good at getting into CEOs' meetings, but this particular one wasn't really gonna meet the needs. So instead, asking a bunch of why questions, we figured out, okay, what's the job that we need to be able to do? We need our software to be able to integrate with a bunch of different platforms. Those platforms need to include a series of different e-commerce solutions. So, anyone heard of middleware?
Yeah.
How good is middleware? Holy hell, I found out about it. And I was like, man, this is like a product manager's dream. So there's a whole bunch of middleware solutions out there, and you can think of them as hubs. They have integrated their software with 1,000 or more other systems. All you need to do is connect your software to them, and as long as your API is strong enough and you've probably got webhooks, then you can then very quickly connect them with a whole bunch of different systems. We did this. We picked Wicado. It's got 14 different e-commerce solutions. So we've zoomed in on Shopify, which happens to meet the needs of most of the organizations wanting to integrate with our software. But it doesn't just stop there. It's also got awesome HR integrations, which was another one that we heard when we were talking to the prospects. They have to be able to integrate with HR systems. And it's got AI in there. Holy hell, did that come in handy. Didn't even think about it at the time because this was a while ago, but they've got about 20 different AI platforms pre-integrated, which we're now, thankfully, able to spin up quite quickly and make use of. So uncovering the why behind the CEO's ask led to us delivering a very different solution. But if you talk to the CEO, this is what he asked for. He's convinced this was his idea. That's fine. But yeah, figure out the why. So, second thing that product managers believe about CEOs is that the CEOs want to be across every detail during product discovery and delivery. Just send them all. If you send all the information to them, they'll pick out what they need, right? You can understand where it comes from because CEOs are naturally curious creatures. They do tend to ask a lot of questions, get a little bit lost in the detail sometimes. And as product managers, there's a lot of parts of the business that we're not exactly privy to. So we might feel a little bit unsure about what areas might be of relevance. So just send it all, why not? And finally, some CEOs, if you give them a little bit of information, they'll dive in and seem very, very engaged. And I'm definitely noticing this with our new CEO. So I get where this is coming from, but in my experience, what CEOs really want is they want to hear how the work we are doing is delivering value for the company. And if possible, if you can build enough trust to be able to do that in the most efficient way with the fewest words possible is actually what they're after. So even though if you give them a bunch of information, they will dig in, what they're looking for is a nice succinct summary. And it's better if you can do it yourself because you actually understand the pieces better than the CEO who has to be across the whole company and all the other pieces. So as an example here, I just wanted to talk about the disc profile. So hands up, do you know what your disc profile is? There we go. CEOs know what their disc profile is. One piece of advice from this talk, go and ask your CEO what their disc profile is. So there's a bunch of different versions out there, but disc profile seems to be the most common with CEOs. A CEO will sit in this space somewhere, and this describes how they want to be communicated with. So not only do you need to figure out a nice succinct summary of how you're delivering success to the business, you need to deliver it in a way that the CEO is going to understand and this profile will tell you that way. So the challenge I've had over the last couple of weeks is, this is me. So I am as close to action as you can possibly get. So I'm a DI with this profile, and that means I like to run real fast, make real quick decisions, and just feel like I have momentum all the time. My last CEO was right next to me, so he was also a DI. So my natural style and communication suited him perfectly. As long as he had a sense that I was moving as fast as humanly possible, I wasn't that interested in the details. Liam's busy. Cool. Keep going, Liam. Can you go a bit faster? I want to go 10% faster. Fantastic. Not too sure what direction, but 10% sounds fantastic. And so that worked really well. But I've just recently got a new CEO, and he sits over here. So accuracy is his big thing. So that's what he wants to understand. He wants to know that there's been a rigorous process followed, that all available information has been assessed, and that we can explain how we've gone from all of that information to our decision, and that we haven't taken any shortcuts. I am known for taking shortcuts. I do like to move quickly and get things done. So I've had to recut the way I work, and I've had to slow down and be a lot more descriptive of the context behind some of the decisions when communicating with this CEO compared to my last CEO. So to recap, a summary of how you're delivering value is all that's needed, but package it up in a way that your CEO is going to be able to process it. My third thing PMs believe about CEOs is that they want to make every product decision themselves. And I see our CEO shaking his head, because I also think this is not the case. But you can understand why product managers think the CEOs want to make all the decisions. It's because they're also making decisions. Every day CEOs have to make decisions. They have to make them really, really quickly. And some CEOs kind of treat the product as their baby, and it feels a bit scary to make a decision for the CEO's baby. And finally, you might have made a decision in the past which didn't quite pan out, which happens. You're not a fortune teller, you can't pick everything right. But then you might have got burnt for that, and then you're not so keen to try again. But in my experience, what CEOs really want is they know that they can't make all the decisions, and they want the product manager to step up and make good decisions. And that kind of ties back into my previous point. It's really key to explain in a way that CEO can process in a nice, succinct way that you are making good decisions. And I'll give you an example of a decision I made, quite a big decision, didn't even tell the CEO. So I've got a couple of teams of developers and a couple of teams of cloud engineers on the infrastructure side. And we were really bogged down with doing our infrastructure upgrades. So we were spending an hour per customer site for a particular group of about 60 customers doing these upgrades manually. And it was just killing us. We had a whole lot of really exciting work we wanted to get onto, but we could never free up the time because we were just spending so much time doing these monthly upgrades. So when my lead cloud engineer came to me and said, hey, I've got a plan. There's this free open source software called Argo CD. If we spend like 3 weeks setting it up, we can upgrade all 60 of our sites in an hour. And I was like, do it. Just do it. And the team they literally cracked on the following week, and then I mentioned it to the CEO in my next update next week. Because that's just such a no-brainer decision. It's not going to impact anything we've promised. It's not going to cost us anything. It's free open source software. It's highly secure. We got the security team to give it a nod that, yep, that's something that isn't going to put us at risk because it wasn't accessing customer data. And yeah, it was only going to take a couple of weeks to do. So we did it, and it was awesome. And Argo CD also allows you to automate more processes. So we use this to automate our upgrade process, but we've then pushed on and been able to do more and more steps, which has freed up more and more of our time. So trust me when I say, if you're making good decisions that you can stand behind, your CEO is going to be stoked. And that's it from me.
You can't do that with a massive feature that takes you to a different market.
Yeah. That's right. There's a balancing act there that can get you in trouble, but it's possible. You can make decisions.
On the disc profile page, their attributes or whatever, communication, just before,
This one.
for that. Are these things like outgoing, enthusiastic, whatever, is that how they like to communicate or how they want to be communicated to?
Yeah, good
Or is
question.
it the same? Probably not the same.
If you go in, you can find, so each quarter gets broken into 3 again, and you can get like these like 8-page reports on every, what are you, if we don't mind asking? C, okay, so you're in the C space, yeah. So you can read a whole report and it talks both about how they like to communicate and how they like to be communicated with. And if you can, work out where you sit, and then you can get reports that compare like things you'll do that pisses off this group. And it's usually quite a long list, it's hilarious. And then things you can do which will make you better communicators to different groups. So this is it's like a hack you can use to just fast track trust with your CEO or any other
It
leaders.
was one of the few things of these type that changed the way I interacted with my team, in that I'm like D with a bit of C. They were pretty much opposites, and when I read what Ds typically do to these other people, it was like, yeah, that's me. And it was like,
Empathy building?
yeah, well, it's like, I'm like, they're coming to me with challenges, and I'm spending 90% of the time talking about the problems they're having and trying to help them with their problem, not recognizing the 99% of things that they're doing really well, and they weren't feeling recognized in that because I was just going into the results. I want to get better, and it's action orientated, and so it made me slow down and just recognize the good before I just started solving more problems and getting buried in there, because I didn't need all that external stuff. I just wanted someone to help me solve this particular problem I'm working on, and I put that on the end, and that wasn't working.
Cool. Cheers, thanks.
So the question I have is what level of organizations we are talking about here, and what kind of, because just a question I don't know. Are the CEOs of a big corporations really interacting with the product managers? Or is it more a small or not small, but say startup stage or late startup stage or I have that question, I don't know whether is this, can CEO be someone else?
Yeah, absolutely. It could be, you could replace CEO with whatever leader you need buy-in to progress things,
Okay. So kind of business or P&L owner or something like that?
Yeah, it might be a CTO or a chief product officer or a head of sales.
Sure.
Yeah, I personally do find I'm quite a noisy guy, so maybe it's just noisy people get pushed in front of CEOs, I'm not sure, but every organization I've worked for, I've had conversations with CEOs about strategic direction.
Sure.
Like even when I was at Scottish Power, so 6,000 employees, 14 million customers. Still the CEO was keen to, like if you're investing, if you've got a team of 10 developers, that's a big cost. They wanted some confidence that that's going to get value out of it.
And in New Zealand, we don't have lots of massive companies,
Sure.
and so often you're within Kiwi of the CEO. They're not that far away from you.
Channel from.
Yeah.
So how do you access these profiles of your CEOs?
Gee, yeah, just go and ask. Next time you're chatting.
I
It's
don't
like
actually
really-
have it, I'm just asking for those who might have difficulty accessing them.
Yeah, so I was just on a call. What's that, sorry? So the question was, how could you go about accessing the profile of your CEO?
Yeah,
That-
those profiles, because they're actually very expensive as well to do.
Yeah, but I'm pretty confident in saying that if you ask a CEO, most of them, to get to such a top leadership position, they've probably gone through executive coaching, and the very first thing an executive coach will do is make them do a disc profile or something similar. So if you just have a conversation with them, or if you don't have direct contact with whoever you can get through to them and ask the question, they'll already have, they'll be able to tell you what it is, and then it's freely available to get the information to understand more about that profile.
We can ask HR.
Yep. Yeah,
Do it for all leaders and in the senior leadership. That's really good. There's a book as well called, I picked it up randomly in the bookshop, it's called Surrounded by Idiots. And it explains the whole thing, and that's really good.
We had something where when I was working at Xero, all of the product managers in Wellington were in the D quadrant, and we just hired in our own image, right? Like blind to it. And we would have these meetings with the product managers in Auckland, and afterwards peers were like, man, that was really hard work. I don't know why they're taking so long, and these meetings that are endless, and they're just waffling, and and they just were desperate for consensus, and it turned out they had all hired S's, so they were all S's, we were all D's, and wondering why we weren't on the same page with everything. It was really fascinating in terms of your bias when you're hiring people, and in understanding others and their needs, and when you come together to collaborate, but it like really shifted how we talk to each other.
And also, the coach I worked with who introduced me to DISC profile was really stressing to me that there's no better place to be. It's just you've got strengths and weaknesses and different preferences to communicating. And her take was that if you can have a team that's a mix of people from different segments, then that can be really effective.
Yeah, when I just hired my COO like two months ago, it took months, but we did the DISC for the whole SLT, and I knew then the gaps, and I specifically looked for a D, a strong D.
Nice.
It's like to feel and to have a full picture.
It's going to seem like I placed you on this talk. Right? Too convenient.
But I have a different point of view. I think opposites attract. If I am D, I would go for S.
Yeah, it can. There are some good things about collaborating with people who aren't in your quadrant, but then there's also
There is also like-mindedness, sure.
Yeah.
You know, in the leadership team and all the.
and the other thing they say in this is that it's not like you only live in one quadrant. You,
Yeah, that
you
is
might
true.
have,
It's just the
Yeah.
categorization.
Yeah.
That is true. Very true. Thank you.
I've done an alternative it's slightly cheaper through a website called Manager Tools. I think it's about half the price. It's still based on DISC.
Sorry, what is the
It's called Manager Tools is the website.
manager tools?
And they have what they call MT DISC, which is just Manager Tools DISC, but it's mostly focused on people management. But it's still basically the same thing. It's just a bit cheaper. So when I was doing my full SLT,
Thank you.
it was more digestible in terms of cost. But yeah.
I was just thinking we could create a like a GPT coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Honestly, not to get the profile, but like I use AI for like pretty much everything now. And actually having this, particularly if you know the different leaders and how they like to be communicated to, it would be so much easier.
Rewrite this for a day.
But yeah, rewrite it or like coach me on how best to explain this, or
Yeah.
here's what I'm planning to say, and verbally dictate it, and then get it to call it your gaps and all these different things. Like, yeah, this is
Good
cool.
shout.
It's made me think of a lot of.
If you just ask ChatGPT, like ask me questions to find out my DISC profile, it probably would work it out.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, I think a lot of us weren't surprised when we went through this where we ended up.
Oh yeah.
Like, so you could probably guess-ish where you are.
Yeah, I pretty much guessed like everyone of my team, I knew what they were before the test.
Yeah. But there's some subtlety about how far your dot is towards the outer, like it's the
Right.
strength of how
Okay.
you are in that quadrant.
Ah.
So if you're like
You're
me,
like in the middle. Are you just?
Yeah, I don't know what if you just.
You're like,
yeah, so the fact that I'm right on the edge means when I read this quadrant, it was like bang on. Like you could not be more accurate. Whereas if I was down here, when I was reading it, I might be like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. In the middle, yeah, you're just a bit of everything, I guess. But what blew me away is,
for someone to actually be in the middle. But
what blew me away is just how different, like just reading over, I'd never really thought of humans being quite as dramatically different as when I read the 4 profiles, and they're like 4 different species. Is how it came out to me. So it's worth understanding that there are other species in the office with you, and you should find ways to cohabit with them.
But interesting how you're on the edge of 2 species, right? And I was the same. And then there were some people who were bang in the middle on the outer edge of the D, and like I knew they were different from me, even though we were roughly in the same quadrant. And so like that sort of distance to the border was actually quite profound for some of our team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. There is like 3, 4, 12 different species, really, isn't there?
I think these things give you like the language and a framework to talk with people about communication styles, like regardless of what it is, or what you might say, or how to strengthen one or another. I think there's some people that might be naturally really, really good at changing their style or adapting to what other people are doing and finding ways to communicate to that person specifically. Sometimes people just need some language or a framework to operate in, to try and do that. And it was really helpful for me, particularly in not casting any aspersions, but with like big groups of developer leads, like people
All in
managing
here.
teams, like giving them a way to, it's super helpful. It's just the language around it. You do get people who get super hung up on exactly where, exactly what. This kind of thing wasn't 100% accurate. It's like, it's not, it's not
I agree.
It's fine. It's just a way of talking and engaging. It's
Make it
fine.
conscious.
Just because it says you're a Libra doesn't mean you have to act that way. You're doing it.
Except when you're in the D, it does make you sound like a bit of a dick. When you read all the stuff. Yeah.
I had a CEO
Yeah.
and he just, all he wanted to engage with me on was how that was wrong. And I was like, it's kind of irrelevant. Like, you're kind of proving the point.
Yeah, 100% proving the point.
It's just a way for us to discuss how we're communicating.
How to deal with us.
Yeah, just
I would sign a petition to come up with a better name for the dominance. All the other ones have cooler names. Anyway, it's a very deep way to think about it.
Access to the streets, right?
But when I said to my CEO, so we caught up and I said, hey, do you know your disc profile? Because I would pick you to be around about here. And he's like, yeah, I'm over there. I'm like, I've set up this talk based on what I understand in terms of your communication style. He was super impressed by that. So if you just want to get some points for the CEO, just explaining that you've considered how they like to be communicated with and you've kind of set up a talk based on that. Would you be impressed with that? One of your team members said that?
Yeah, if it follows with the actual sync and communication. Because I've had trouble with product professional. By carry.
We've solved it for you now, though, right? This talk.
Everything in the talk is on point.
Nice one. All right, well, I'm conscious of the time, guys. So thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
And we'll post the recording.